Folks, we are live. It is Friday night. There is no pay-per-view, but we are still here. It is the Ultimate Schmodown Show. We are your one-stop shop on Friday nights for everything in the Schmodown world. Today, we're going to be breaking down yesterday's match between Mark Yodi, Reilly, and VideoDrew. And then we're going to be joined by a very special guest. The delinquent himself, Lon Harris, will be joining the show coming up. But first, I'm joined by two of my favorite people on the entire world. I'm not even gonna lie. These guys are out. These guys are climbing up the power rankings of my favorite people. John Barr, how are you doing, sir? I haven't talked to you this week.
I know, yeah, it's been a minute. I'm doing well. I don't know why you said there isn't going to be a pay-per-view this week. As I've told you and Boggs repeatedly, I'm hosting a pay-per-view tonight where I quote the entire movie of Shark Tale word for word. So I guess you're not watching that. That's cool, dude. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to have a match to talk about with you guys.
I said what? You said what first? Oh, I'm quoting Shark Tale. Sorry.
Yeah.
Am I the only one?
You think I don't know? You think I don't know? I know everything.
It's such a bad movie. Oh, God. Boggs, dude, save us. We're drowning over here. How's it going, bud?
No, good. Obviously, we're live. Just breaking things down. No pay-per-view to discuss, but obviously we've got a match to break down on Thursday, and I can't wait to get our guest on. He's one of the biggest stars going at the moment in the game. So, yeah, let's get the quick review and get him on.
Wait, you're telling me Bruce Willis is not playing Kevin Smith this week?
I think you mean Tracy Morgan and Daredevil from my award-winning bit.
God, then
I can't wait to go to the Schmodown Awards this year that will happen in person and collect my...
Then what was that charge on my PayPal account? It was like $10 to the Schmodown. Oh, man, Christian,
it definitely didn't go to me. It definitely didn't go to me and my beer collection. Sure? I can tell you. Beer collection. What's wrong with me? Let's talk about
a collection of beards.
My goodness.
You take your beard off and put a... Come on.
You want to talk about Mark Reilly versus VideoDrew, or do you want to keep roasting me for things I did wrong and deserve to be roasted for?
Gosh, fine. Then yesterday we saw an awesome match. We saw the return of one of the greatest singles players of all time and one of the brightest up-and-coming stars, if that's a term that you would use to describe VideoDrew. I would, as a bright up-and-coming star in the league, in the singles division now. Guys, this was an amazing match. I think, got a lot more in terms of, we learned a lot more about each competitor than I think we thought we would. So going into this, John, Mark Reilly, the big return, obviously coming off that huge loss in that teams match with his partner, Ben Bateman. What were you expecting from Yodi?
I mean, I was expecting him to put on a good performance. I would say this about pretty much everybody in the Schmodown, but he would beat me in a match easily. So he's definitely not like a person I was like counting out at all. But I did have VideoDrew beating him on my bracket. I've talked about that a couple times. I do feel like he is the kind of competitor where like he kind of like comes in and out in waves, where I feel like a lot of times when people are really underestimating him, that's when he shoots up. But then like the second like people do start putting like the respect he's owed on his name, that's where he then kind of has those moments like the Stacey Howard one where he gets beaten in like that big upset. So I was kind of skeptical going into this, where I was just like, VideoDrew is a really solid competitor. And like, you know, I was worried that maybe Mark was going to be one of those folks where he's like, I'm the former champ. I can kind of relax a little bit, especially coming off of that Who's the Boss match, where I felt like that was sort of the energy going into it. So I was just like, I was skeptical. I mean, and to be clear, I like Mark. He's definitely a good competitor. Going into it, though, I was a little skeptical.
So, Boggs, I'll pose it to you this way. I don't think Mark Reilly has ever been beaten by anyone. I would say Mark Reilly has probably beaten himself most times. He's never, been at someone else's, mercy. It's usually been a self-inflicted wound. And he kind of left that door open yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, especially as of late, what you're saying, Colin, that, like he's getting in his own head. He misses a few round one questions, sometimes the pressure, living up to that name, being the kind of first great player that we've seen in this Schmodown. So, yeah, I mean, I was looking for him to, we've discussed it kind of going in on our previous episodes that it's a big tournament for Reilly in particular, because all the other Finstock guys, all the other champions, they're all kind of having title shots, going for #1 contender matches, looking to go far, and he's kind of getting written off because of his recent form. Having close matches with Stacey Howard, with Janine, and obviously this match, he really needs some momentum going into the later stages. That's what I was thinking going in. But obviously, he had a tough fixture.
All the way around, though, I mean, we're just 2 rounds into the match. I never felt, like anyone had held game with Reilly like that in terms of being able to stay in their own zone. At least it's something to say about this digital space where Reilly kind of brings an aura in the studio that is kind of lost in this digital sphere. Like when Reilly steps into the arena, you kind of felt like everyone knew Reilly was stepping into the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of a thing that I felt kind of lost in that first digital match, and found again in the match against Guy. But I mean, John, let's go ahead and get into it real quick, man. That round 1, break it down.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, certainly one person who did not have any element of her, I think, kind of performance or her kind of energy downplayed in the digital space, and if anything, just got to have even more fun, which was great to see, was VideoDrew with the 2 dolls. It seemed like she had kind of one that was smiling, one that was sad, for different emotions throughout the match, which that's really great scenic work. So that's just something that's worth shouting out. As far as breaking down round 1, not a lot to say. It ended 5-5. It was, like you were saying, very even matched all the way through. VideoDrew took the first miss with the lethal weapon question, but then both missed the 6th day question, and then Mark missed the Allison Williams question from Get Out. So that is kind of what tied it up, and that's what lost Mark Reilly his lead. And then they both stayed again at that same pace. Both wound up missing one other question with Paranorman, a movie that is definitely a cultural blind spot for me. So I completely got it, as is true of a lot of the questions that got missed as well. Other than, honestly, the Allison Williams question, all of the misses that both of these competitors had, I would have missed as well. And it was a tight match. It's one of those things where these are both good players. It's all kind of a question about what you can recall in the exact moment. And both of these 2 were super even matched in their knowledge.
I cannot refer to Allison Williams when referring to Get Out without saying like really mean things about her because I just hate that character with every fiber of my being, like so much. You know how like if somebody sees Joffrey on the street, you want to punch that kid in the face.
Sure.
It's like you just don't want to say nice things to that lady if she's walking down the street. She's just iconic now. When she holds the keys on the stairs, I'm done. I am done in that movie. That killed me. Are you lost? You know what I'm talking about? Like,
no, I'm just trying to remember the name of that Netflix movie she did.
Oh,
with like the violin one, right?
Yeah, she was also. Still, it's just it's one of those inescapable things that you see somebody do, and you're like, I can never unsee that as you. It's just linked forever. But one thing that's linked forever is VideoDrew's amazing green screen dress and the whole way that roping it in to the do they sell green markers? I didn't even know that was a thing, guys. That was crazy. Oh, no, you know what I mean.
Green markers,
chroma markers. Is that like a special chroma marker? I don't know. Maybe that was. I thought that was pretty great. That was pretty trippy. Of all the things, it definitely went better than Bibiani's like angled shot. Of the ways people have tried to, mess with people in terms of perspective, that definitely went much better, I think, than prior attempts. Round 2, Boggs. It was, again, a pretty even. Like, we come out of this round and still neck and neck. One's got the advantage, but how's it play out?
Yeah, so just, obviously Reilly missing his round 1. Misses again, you think, oh, okay, he's going to go into a slump again. What's going on here? Obviously, VideoDrew's keeping pace. She's obviously got the whole character thing going. So I think maybe slightly throwing him off a little bit. Who knows there? But yeah, I was happy for VideoDrew to keep keep pace. So, obviously, Colin, we spoke about this over the last week or so, that, I just really wish that her going in, she had some momentum going in. Like, I wish she could have played a fellow person who's had maybe he's 0-1, 0-2, and these guys play each other. So some of these guys can get a win and then go into a match against a top player. So if they were to play someone like, I don't know, she was to play someone like Rich Silvestrini or Tim Franco, someone like that, and then play Mark Reilly, like I think we'd have a maybe a lot closer match all the way to the end potentially, because they've got the confidence, they've got the momentum, that kind of thing. But obviously, we're in the middle of a tournament, but I'm just saying that's the ideal scenario. I think that's the next step, having that kind of build up towards a big match would lead to a better performance basically, and potential upset there. But
yeah, well, I mean, I'll cut in here briefly because I do kind of dig what you're saying, just as far as, normally in the Schmoedown world, there would be a lot more singles matches.
Random singles
happening.
matches. Yeah, true.
And we're getting a little bit of that now with Janine versus Warfather, which is going to be the undercard for the Bateman versus Merle. But I do want to just make sure that we do give credit where credit is due, because VideoDrew had a really solid game as well. Like, I know we've been talking a little bit about her character stuff, but as she mentions in her post game, which I really dug, like, she is more than just the character VideoDrew. She also played a very good game of the movie Trivia Schmoedown. I don't know why completely in that way.
But she played it completely, right? Like, we watched an incomplete version of that with Andrew Guy. We saw a version of that where some things seemed to be a bit too big for the moment, and either A plus B didn't equal C that day. But Drew was able to put everything together, and to see, obviously our guest coming up is also one of the best at this, to be able to make it work for your game. That's very important, to be able to have your game and your character coexist, not be at war with one another, but for that to be able to flow. And I think that's one thing we saw today with Drew, was that Drew was able to at times focus and, mentally be involved in the game while also still be VideoDrew at the same time, which is extremely difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that's like because I've never played a character on this show, and you can't prove otherwise. But yeah, like, it was one of those things where it's just like, yeah, both Mark Reilly and both VideoDrew got 5 of their possible 8 points in their respective categories, but VideoDrew was able to get the magnificent steal away from Mark Reilly, whereas Mark was not able to get the little rascal steal. And it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, VideoDrew went up, and, it's part of why I'm like pushing back, because I feel like a lot of the narrative around this match is sort of like, oh, is Reilly a little bit too rusty? And it's what I try to do a lot on this show. When I talk about any matches, I try to make sure I talk about both players, because I do feel like making the narrative around this match, oh, is Mark Reilly too rusty, is a real disservice to how truly well VideoDrew played this match. So I just wanted to make sure we spent the time to be like, no, VideoDrew played a good game.
The first
and
2 rounds
came out
were
2 with a lead.
Yeah, I mean, if you're holding par with a current with a champion coming out of round 1, that's a win. You're up by 1 coming out of round 2, that's a win. Sometimes round 3 and the categories just get you, and that just happens in this game. And that isn't something to fault anyone for. Like, that's one thing when you look at the questions and you look at, just going back on them, just didn't quite line up. And that, I hate to use the phrase, but just kind of is what it is when it comes to round 3. Sometimes you hit them, and it's like we saw earlier in this week. We saw 2 times where the 2 and the 3 were missed, but then the 5-pointer was hit in 3 seconds. Like, they nailed the 5-pointer, like, because they just knew it. Sometimes you just know something. Sometimes, Boggs, you just don't.
Yeah, she nearly got there with the 5-pointer as well. She obviously in the post match, she did kind of break it down a little bit. So yeah, she's a bit unlucky with that. But did miss a 2 and a 3. But yeah, I think overall in round 1 and round 2, she was the better player. It's just so happened that she couldn't hit points in round 3. So it was unfortunate. But in terms of, moving forward, I'm not gonna lie, I'm happy for Reilly, because he needs it. Like, he needs it for his Schmoedown career. I think, because as of late in singles, he's all over the shop. So for him to kind of get some momentum going into a later match, I was happy for him. But VideoDrew, she played great. She played great. I just personally want to see her, have a, her having a playing match is. I don't mean it as a negative. I mean it as a pure positive, because she will have that momentum, that confidence, that mindset going in.
We compared it more to like basketball shooters.
Yeah, as you're going in with a win, right?
Right?
As opposed to just going in cold or not. For example, when was the last time she's played, right? It's been ages. So if she's played a playing match and got a win, then going in, I think maybe it would have I don't know if I'd have an impact on round 3 at all or anything, but you know, it would just be overall confidence, mindset, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall, obviously tight match where she just didn't nail it down. But yeah, she played great, no doubt.
Man, guys, I mean, I was just overall blown away by how steady it was through 2 rounds. That's kind of like why round 3 to me was so jarring, because it just kind of felt like it was not part of the same match, because it just felt like that's why I'm not like ragging on the way Drew played at all, because round 3 just was such a vast difference compared to the first 2 rounds, that the first 2 rounds were so great that you can't fault the way round 3 went. So it's, you know, it just kind of goes with the flow with like players are going to play, and she played great in the first 2 rounds. John, you seem a little perplexed, but I'm just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is part of just me. I love to fence it. I do love to play both sides. But again, like VideoDrew also had, like, even though she wasn't able to get points on the board in round 3, it's like with that, 3-pointer, Angel has fallen, Olympus has fallen. It's like, oh, she just missed the right like Greek noun. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, that question, as well as then as she was talking about the 5-pointer, where it's just like, oh, it's just the one Quentin Tarantino movie that she didn't see. It's just like there's just so many elements of the game where I was just like, she's a really fucking good player, and I don't know if I'm allowed to curse
language
on this show.
Gosh,
this is my own show.
I'm pretty
sure
the Outlaw came on here and dropped the first F-bomb in Ultimate Show.
I knew he would.
Like, it was the
you
first
know it was
one.
me? Oh, I had more faith in me. I thought it was going to be the mysterious man who sits behind me at all times and kind of pokes me when it's time to move on to the next round. But yeah, man, it was a good show. Lon, that's a great question. I don't know who's on the show. Anyone could be on the show. I think I gotta be off the show because I'm dropping profanities, the likes of which you would never hear in the film Shark Tale, which catch me reciting live on Twitch. Just kidding.
Well, guys, we have a specialer guest. Okay, John, I'm gonna surprise you because it's not who you think it is. Joining the show. I mean, instant reactions, guys. This never happens. You must have heard us talking through.
This is the Ultimate Schmodown show, baby.
It's the Ultimate Schmodown show. We don't back down, folks. Coming off of amazing performance yesterday, it's VideoDrew. How are you, VideoDrew? Hello, VideoDrew.
Hi. Sorry. I'm not in my usual Black Lodge today. I had to go to a garage somewhere. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Speak of the devil and she appears.
That's what happens. I thought Tom or Lon was here, one of the two. But
we might as well just go ahead and make this a party. Here himself as well is Lon Harris.
Hello. What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Does this mean I should leave? Probably.
Yeah. Honestly, all 3 of you guys maybe just
All right, hold on 1 sec.
That's fair.
Can we have the room?
Yeah. Hey.
I've always wanted to do that, like in movies where they're like, give us the room and everybody has to leave.
Yeah. And then you don't get to hear anything more about it going out. Oh,
right.
Wow.
No, then they're all watching while it's like quiet and the 2 people discuss the important stuff.
Hey,
yeah.
Juan, you like my shirt?
Oh, yes. Very nice.
It's Sign Peaks. It's when you match up with Twin Peaks with Seinfeld. The very obvious thing of when you mash up Twin Peaks and Seinfeld and you get Sign Peaks.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, guys, thank you so much for just coming and hanging out with us. I mean, I know usually like for the last month, we've all been like anxiously awaiting some pay-per-view event that will shatter the internet. Yeah. But, now we all get a break. It's kind of nice. I mean, at least for us, I feel like we kind of, have been going nonstop for the last month. But just to kick back, relax, and just talk some normal stuff is just kind of great.
Normal
Drew,
stuff.
Yesterday I thought was one of the. You threw 2 rounds. That was just unbelievable. You were you were on fire. Like I've had
Thank you.
I didn't want to say bright because you don't bring bright. I mean, that's not really your style. It's not really brightness.
Not bright.
Right.
Not bright. Yeah.
You're not the 2017 Netflix film, Bright, and thank you for not being that movie.
Thank you. I'm not a Max Landis creation, although I like to exist that I exist in a Max Landis less universe, one without him. No, I will say that, you know, it was really good to hear you say that. I do think the story that became like the narrative here is like how rusty Mark was, and like honestly, it was my game to lose going into the third. So like it was my game to lose going into the third for a reason, which is that like I kind of kicked ass on like a very difficult slice. And so it's good to be recognized for that. I like know Mel Brooks movies like pretty well, but like I think so does Lon, and even some of those were pretty hard. Like the To Be or To Not to Be is not a movie that like you think of associated with Mel Brooks, even though he starred in it. You know.
Well, but I mean, even the ones that like you got, like I thought the high anxiety Madeline Kahn question was like that's like a level up. That's not the most like Cloris Leachman to me has the more memorable role because it's so big in that.
Oh man,
movie.
I didn't even think of Cloris Leachman. Oh man, so glad I didn't think of Cloris Leachman.
Yeah, no, like when I heard the question, I was like, it's definitely Madeline Kahn or Cloris Leachman. I think it's Madeline Kahn, and then you said Madeline Kahn. It was correct, but it could have been Cloris Leachman.
I forgot that Cloris Leachman was in these.
Worked to your benefit, but yeah, like that. Even the ones that you got that were like the easier ones were not like gimme easy questions.
No, Carrie always. I mean,
well, okay, Carrie always. That one's pretty straightforward. But other
that
than
one's pretty straightforward. You know, like if I was looking for like, you know, I was looking at that wheel, and not to give too much away about like my process here, but I was looking at that wheel and I was like, there's not that many other categories. Like I didn't even consider Mel Brooks as an option, honestly. I hadn't like thought about him as a slice one way or another. Probably for the best, because it turns out you can just do movies that Mel Brooks was in, which makes sense. That's totally fair. That's on the table. That's like, you know, like Clint Eastwood or
sense,
anybody
but
else.
2 of the 4 questions being like a pretty obscure cameo in a pretty obscure Little Rascals movie, and then not even a main character from To Be or Not to Be, like a supporting player. Yeah,
I mean that one I managed to get just by doing process of elimination. I hadn't heard of any of those other people, so I just went with Christopher Lloyd, who was kind of big in that period of time. So again, maybe
hey guys, can I just host your show from now on?
Go for it, man.
Absolutely.
You're doing great, Lon. You're
Feels
doing great.
natural right
Hold
now.
on, wait.
Take back with my beer for a minute, man. This is
All
great.
right. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So, gentlemen, on the table, what do we think? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you're not seeing this, but on the other side of my room, it's just Lon's bed, and it's tacos there too. So he's gonna walk into frame any moment now.
You guys are using great mics. I mean, they're not giving any feedback whatsoever.
No, nothing whatsoever.
It's fantastic.
It's also like set deck, like we did one of those like sitcom lines down the middle of the room. So it's like this is my space.
Don't cross my half. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fridge
like a college
right
dorm
in the middle,
room.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Mel Brooks category and it kind of not being on your mind. It kind of rings in my head as one of those categories, almost in the same vein as SNL movies, where it's not a category that's spun often. And you mentioned that they're pretty deep cut questions, and that doesn't really line up with what's kind of been the flow of these categories that are kind of newer wheel questions. Is they are kind of more surface level at the start. And, you know, if somebody dives into Mel Brooks movies, you might be expecting, well, when was then? Well, then was now, but now is then, and then is now. You know,
when will then be now? Yeah.
Right, exactly. You expect some surface level Spaceball stuff, but no, that was some 3 to 5 pointer level questions on a category that we haven't seen this season.
And look, and in fairness, my 5-pointer was like the most gettable out of all those questions that I have, the 2, 3, and 5. Like the 5-pointer was the one that like I'm still kicking myself over because like I would have said Jackie Brown. To give you guys a little peek behind the curtain, what actually happened was I didn't say anything, and I asked for my last JTE, which I'd already used. So the match actually went down like I lost. I lost because I didn't say the right answer, and I didn't give any answer. I asked for JTE at the 1, and they were like, "You ran out of JTEs." Like I miscounted.
You
them.
Pulled a Chris Webber.
Yeah.
Does anybody else get that? Anybody? Lon? Does that register?
No.
Okay. Sean, my producer in the booth, Sean gets it. It's
Sean,
a 1990s basketball reference.
Yeah.
Where a man called a timeout that didn't exist.
It sucked. And they luckily, like, graciously were like, okay, you know what? It looks worse for that to happen. They're like, what were you going to say? And I was like, well, you know, it's kind of a sign between Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown. And so they were like, you know, okay, so you lost. Like, that's just the end of the day. You lost. But, like, would you be okay with saying Pulp Fiction? Because it was like, you know, I decided to go with that, yes, because it makes for a better edit. And like I was like arguing with them about like whether or not I'd use my last JTE. You can hear me in the previous question going final JTE, so like I obviously knew. I just miscounted. It was dumb, but I'm still kind of conflicted about whether that looks worse than me saying something that I knew was wrong when we went back and did it. Like I knew Pulp Fiction was wrong. And I probably would have, had I not known had I remembered that I used my GTs, I would have just said Jackie Brown. Because it really was the only one that made sense. It's also just the only one I hadn't seen.
I mean, listen, you got the Psyduck back there in your background, which I love. And, to bring it back to my canonically favorite film, Detective Pikachu, we all have that moment where we're just trying to, like, think of something and we're thinking too hard on it and our brain explodes. And if at the end of the day, you aren't able to pull from like the one Quentin Tarantino movie you haven't seen, that is nothing to be ashamed of at all, especially with like such a good game. And again, considering that, the question mark Reilly had to answer in his round 3 was, and maybe this is just because I'm a baby, so I've seen all of the animated movies like Detective Pikachu and Shark Tale and Shrek 2. Mm-hmm. But, just with the... right?
If I had thought about it for a second, and this is something as a competitor you learn how to do, and this is again on me for not doing, is like you learn to think in terms of what's a 2-pointer, what's a 3-pointer, what's a 5-pointer. What's a 2-pointer, and they ask you what James Bond actor, they're not asking you to go back and think about who's in James Bond movies. They're asking you to go and think of who is James Bond. They're asking you to think of like somebody who has played James Bond, not somebody who's been in the James Bond films. And had I done that and thought, okay, this is a 2-pointer, not a like 2-pointer in round 3. So that's like basically a 1-pointer. And more so than any other round, it matters in this final round what they consider a 2, 3, and 5-pointer. And 2 is going to be super easy. So when they say name a James Bond actor, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for an actor who played James Bond, nothing else. So if I had done that, because I've seen Tomb Raider, I saw it in the theaters. I remember thinking this guy's way too old for her, and like it's a weird. He has like a weird, like he gets one of these weird like comeuppance deaths where he like betrays her, and then I think he gets like murdered in some glorious fashion. So I was like, that's a Sean Bean thing to ever happen. And it was around the right time for it to be a Sean Bean thing. So Sean Bean, if I had like thought about it for an extra second, took a moment, breathed, and was like, okay, they're looking for a James Bond actor. There's only like one that it could have been because it was definitely not Pierce Brosnan. For the 3,
Dalton's not in Tomb Raider, to my knowledge.
No. I would have been surprised. It would have been one of those facts that I would have been like, oh, that's interesting to find out because like he's just like a nothing burger in that movie. Like he's just so weird and like blonde and 10 years too old for her. And for the 3, I probably should have just been judicious about it. I wouldn't have used my last JT on 3 just because like I was never going to get there. I was using that last JT to see if I could get to Olympus Has Fallen. Like, and then I got there and I was like pretty proud of myself for getting to the right franchise. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't in the wrong franchise. So like, if I had been smarter about it, I would have been like, okay, let's just use this as a throwaway. You don't know it. And then use that last JT on the 5, in which case probably Jackie Brown. But it might have been my answer. But the whole thing was so fakakta anyway that it but it already went so sideways. But I was leading going to the 3rd. Gucci said that he didn't even predict it going to like 3 rounds. So like I was leading going into 3. So I'm pretty proud of myself. I feel like on Facebook, there's a couple people have picked up on the thing that I did after the match, was asking people to call me overrated because I never get called anything. And then now
you set up a little thing on the Facebook group where someone called you overrated, and then people are like, "How dare you, sir? Stop, leave these competitors alone."
Oh my god, I feel so bad because I was like, I shouldn't have done that because now I see the problem is people are trying to like be cute and funny and being like, "Hey, Drew Grant's VideoDrew's overrated," and now everyone else is coming at them with a fire of hell, and I'm like, no, this is not what I wanted. I just meant like,
or it's exactly what you wanted. Let's be honest.
It's exactly what I wanted. No, what I meant was there's certain players who get called overrated a lot of time they're women. A lot of my issue with that isn't that, it's not okay to call players overrated, but I'm like, there are dude players who are overrated as hell. Like a lot of them get called like Mount Rushmore stats. And I'm like, well, I could probably take them, or at least I could give them the fight. And I think that's what
you just did, dude. You just did.
That was the point of the match.
Did. Like, you just took one of the greatest of all time and had him for 2 rounds. And that's was kind of my main point in our review is that I can, because of your performance in the first 2 rounds, unlike other competitors, I can separate the 3rd round. The 3rd round it's just
It is what
out
it
of
is.
those, it is what it is.
I
Because the
should've
way you performed in the first 2 rounds was it was top notch because you held with it was fantastic.
I might have if I'd go back again and do things differently, would I have picked his birthday numbers for my like 3 numbers? Like, no, those are probably like first numbers. But I thought it was really funny to like memorize what Mark Reilly's birthday was, and then to like repeat them as like hit my favorite numbers. I mean, that's
I just
weird.
perpetually go with the lost numbers. So whenever somebody picks 4, 8, and 15, I just automatically assume that they're going to win or lose terribly in a burning blade.
Or be
Not
sent
sure
through
you-
time. One of them.
Or you-
Yeah,
I'm not sure-
whichever, season 5, it sure.
I'm not sure how old you guys were like when Lost was ending, but a bunch of people in
old.
Texas, pretty old. Yeah, like Lon
Oh,
was like 40.
I was already quite old. Like,
Yeah. So the thing is, the people went to this Texas like had a lottery, bingo lottery. One of these with $2 million jackpots, and everyone bet on the numbers 4, 8, and 15. Like everyone in Texas did, and it turned out to be the numbers. And so like everyone in Texas had to like split this giant ass jackpot because like it actually came up with like the lost numbers. It was pretty freaking incredible. Like people were like, that means it's definitely rigged, right? Like,
Man.
no, it means Lost is real.
Right, yeah.
the
Hurley
island
was
is out there
right.
somewhere,
Go
yeah.
open a chicken franchise and you're good to go. Like you're totally here. Man, that's kind of the one thing about all this is like it's so everything is so up to those numbers in the 3rd round that you could get anything. You could get your 3 least favorite categories. You could get your 3 favorite categories. It just
I was kind of freaking out when they said Tarantino though, because I was like, I have this. Like, I love Quentin Tarantino movies. Like, in the past, and because of the game that me and Nerd Chronic put on every Monday and Thursday, the Video Chronic Pop Culture Quiz, we've done a lot of the Tarantino movies. Like, we Jeff Snyder's our reigning champion of Tarantino, but like we've done like Kill Bill, we've done Pulp Fiction. I think we've done 1 or 2 more, and like I know like what kind of key or like what kind of little figurine is like what's hanging on the keys, like what kind of shape of animal that figurine is in Pulp Fiction that Butch like brings.
It's a porcelain kangaroo. We all know that one.
It's a porcelain kangaroo. Yeah. Shut up, Juan. Yeah, it's a porcelain. Yeah, it's a porcelain kangaroo. Like that could have been the 5-pointer.
Come on, whatever.
That could have been the 5-pointer. Like or
Could have been.
Could have been. And it's just one of those things where the night before, I think Kaiser and Adam Witt were like, you should probably go watch Jackie Brown. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I should probably watch a lot of things. The Weapon was also on the list of things I had to watch, like before this match. And,
You know what would be nice if a thoughtful friend brought you over a whole box full of DVDs and one of them was Jackie Brown. That would be... But who would be that thoughtful? Who has a friend like that?
That's one of the new Schmodown Entertainment Network shows, right? Is Lon just shows up with boxes of old DVDs of movies.
Wait, no, isn't that the
day
scene
before.
from 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah.
He shows up with the box of DVDs to Steve Carell's house.
Yeah, it's basically just that. Yeah,
Ah.
we're already doing it. There's just
But
nobody
a
filming.
pure
that
cinema.
also brought me over like so many, like I just also have to get through Charlie
Oh,
Barrett.
Charlie
That's
Barrett is so good. Nobody's seen that movie. That was a great recommendation. It's Don Siegel, the guy who did Dirty Harry, directed it, and it's Walter Matthau, but it's not a comedy. He's like a bank robber and he's avoiding the mob. It's really good.
So as you can imagine, hanging out with Lon means you get a bunch of stuff, and it's very confusing. I have Glory over here. I'm just realizing Glory was one of the questions they asked about because that's got Denzel in it.
Some good movies.
Yeah.
Basically, the surface level Glory question, though. If you go any deeper to Glory, it is a crapshoot of questions.
Yeah.
That's
What
acceptable.
war?
Like that. What war? I've just
Andre
messed up a
Brower,
Denzel
final
question.
answer.
I've definitely messed up a Denzel question that involved what war though, because it was like what battle or like.
No, I think it's the Remember the Titans one, right? It's what it's they go to a battlefield commemorating a battle from what war or something, right?
Yeah, and I said revolutionary, which doesn't even make sense. Why would that be the
Right.
thing? Even without having
And
seen the movie, that wouldn't be it.
And in the movie they go to Gettysburg, so it's the Civil War is the answer.
Yeah.
Which never makes any sense because that movie is about a high school from my state of South Carolina, and they go to Gettysburg.
It's a long
Like,
drive. It's a very long
guys,
drive.
we have plenty of Civil War
Yeah,
battlefields
right.
in
There's a
South
lot
Carolina for
closer.
you to come check out. Like, please,
Go to
come on
Antietam.
down. The Patriot, ever heard of it? All shot here. Like, you please come on down.
I have now seen, luckily I have seen Remember the Titans. When he spun Denzel, I gotta say I was a little bit like giggling to myself. I'm like, because it's all fine and good to put Denzel on the wheel because you know your opponent's bad at it. And you want to stick it to them. And maybe that's what they were thinking after my one's team match with Denzel on the wheel as opponent's choice. On the other hand, Denzel is just a really hard cat. Like I wouldn't put it on the wheel unless I was confident that I knew a lot about it. And it seemed like Reilly, to his credit, had studied it or whatever. It just seemed like if that's what he put on the wheel for the sole purpose of trying to get me to grab it, it kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it's a very labor intensive thing to have to study, because it's clear that he did study it. He had studied Denzel, but it's a big ask to like put yourself under, as opposed to putting literally any other actor and assuming that maybe I'm also as bad as that than I would be with with someone else. I mean, I only got his pickup steal because I wouldn't have gotten Magnificent Seven as a pickup, except that I figured from the multiple choice and the way they were phrasing it and the fact that they had two people with similar sounding names on there. I knew it wasn't D'Onofrio who played a good guy. I was going between Madsen, but as soon as he said Alexander and it wasn't that, I was like, well, then they must have done the multiple choice to make it Sarsgaard, Like that's kind of how I gained that out.
It's like I feel like we got like 2 questions recently about the Dark Tower, where it's like each question was about like one of the 2 main characters, and it's just like that kind of thing where it's like you do kind of wind up with that.
Idris, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those actor categories I think are kind of tricky because you see Denzel Washington, you think of the big movies that you know, and you're like, I can answer questions about those, but you forget about all the like Deja Vu, John Q, like all these actors have. Yeah, all these actors have these long resumes, and like you're not always going to be like Jodie Foster. To me is like terrifying because this is like a 5-decade career of obscure.
You get a taxi driver question, you're like, what?
Right, but like Taxi Driver, okay, like you can do Taxi Driver and like Panic Room and like the big Silence of the Lambs, but you forget like the little girl who lives down the lane or Foxes or like, and those are valid Jodie Foster movies. Like,
are you not watching Hotel Artemis every night like I am?
Yeah, like man, it's like you can really get lost.
You can get any directed movie by Jodie Foster.
Right, the Beaver. Is everybody prepared for the Beaver questions? Yeah.
I am prepared for the Beaver questions, but...
All right, well, they're fair enough.
Well, I don't even think you need to really be worried because from what I've heard, Denzel Washington doesn't even watch Denzel Washington movies. He's one of those actors that like doesn't go back to his filmography. So like, don't even worry about that Denzel category. Any competitor, because Denzel doesn't even study Denzel. He couldn't even answer those questions about it.
I said Cleo Logan's asking Carbon Copy. That's the first thing I said. It was Carbon Copy. The one where I thought it was Charles Grodin. It's the one where his dad is. Do you remember who his dad is? It's not Charles. It's not Charles.
No, isn't it George Siegel?
Yeah.
Yes, because we discussed that whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I've seen that movie before. I'm like, the one where he like tries to make Denzel win like a baseball or basketball match, but like he's not very good at basketball.
Not only have I not seen that movie, I thought you were describing there's another movie from like the 90s that has that kind of premise, and I thought you meant that one instead.
You have the black kid, yeah. It's Denzel. Yeah.
Right.
Now this one was on Comedy Central all the time when I was growing up, and they had like no original content.
Right. It used to just be old movies. Yeah, I remember.
Futurama starts at 10:30, and then it eventually spirals into Colbert Report at 11:30. Is the good stuff.
This was way before Future. Oh man, no, I'm talking about before there was like an original lineup. I'm talking when they had Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that was it on College Humor. On Comedy Central. That's the only thing they had was Mystery Science Theater. That was their only original.
Yeah, it used to just be like old TV reruns and weird movies and whatever stand-up specials they could license from like A&E back in the day.
Yeah, there was like nothing.
Back in the old folks' day.
Man, can I ask you guys? Sorry, can I ask a question?
Boggs, go, please, Boggs.
I've been waiting patiently, guys. Yeah.
Oh, you've been killing it. I've been seeing you up there looking all good. I see you up there.
No, it's just because obviously you guys are like the leading or some of the leading characters going at the moment. So I'm just wondering. I was just wondering if you guys do you guys prefer the trivia stuff or do you prefer watching the character stuff? Not necessarily yourselves, just the Schmo Night in general. Do you tune in? Does that appeal to you more, or is it the pure trivia aspect of it?
You, David.
I'm guessing gonna have different answers.
I mean, I enjoy both. I don't think I would want to be in a trivia league like this that was not in some way about fun and entertainment. Like, I like trivia. It's fun. Obviously I like knowing more stuff than other people, and like I've always enjoyed that. So there's fun in that. But yeah, like getting to be a character, getting to goof around, getting to make it funny and entertaining is like, that's pretty core to what I always was interested in doing. And if it was just like sunglasses and like serious faces and like, I don't think I would have stuck with it maybe this long. So it's like, I like both aspects of it, but yeah, I definitely want the fun, goofy, entertaining stuff to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's like people are kind of compartmentalizing it and saying like they're at odds with each other. Like, like with the Andrew Guy match, people are like, well, if he hadn't focused so much on character, he would have done a better performance as a competitor. And I'm like, I don't necessarily like see it that way. For me, like, no surprise to anyone, especially Leo out here in the audience. But like, I'm not the best at movie trivia in the world, and I'm probably never going to be the best at movie trivia. But that's not like what this was originally pitched to me as. Like, nor is it what like I've like really loved about being involved with the Trivia Schmodown. It really is like the community fandom, like the chance to be like, I didn't know what kayfabe meant before like I joined up with this group, and I was like, oh, kayfabe's like living your art life, like it's performance art. Oh, I love this. Like that, it really like gave me a whole new lease on like life and creativity and what I want to do with my own work. So like, yeah, I would just say that like this year I did take it, and I think it kind of hurt. I see it the other way. Like I see it as my game competitiveness, this game specifically, like really hurt the character work. Like it really came to like be this thing where it's like I think I'd been relying on Tom for so long to be like getting the answers right, and then I could just be the character. And for this game, knowing that he wasn't going to be there, I really, really drilled down and was studying like 20 hours a day for like over a month and a half, like just nonstop, like constant drills, constant whatever. And I think it really shows. Like I was quieter, and I was not messing around. I wasn't trying to be that weird. I mean, I was still weird, but like I was really like focused on the game, and that's kind of a hard thing to balance. I mean, Lon's got it down to a T now. So does Tom. So,
well, I mean, I thought, both of you definitely had it down, especially like compared to Andrew Guy. Like we can't really say for sure that he'd be able to balance it because we haven't seen him be able to do it. Unlike you, who we've now seen do a great job. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit for how like good you've been doing since like doing all this drills and stuff. Like you really nailed it as opposed to Andrew Guy, who I definitely have, nothing but nice things to say about him. But like, this whole character of the Schmominati, I just think
Okay, so we lost John there. He might be back at some point. But I think what he was kind of going off of was we did have a bit to say about it. We know that the talent's there for Andrew. That's definitely not like what the whole conversation was centered around, but it was definitely that the moment plus everything didn't quite, need it.
See what you got, Colin.
I definitely think that like people are giving Andrew a lot of credit for how good he is. When I'm like,
he's fantastic.
It's real acting. Like he was acting, and it was like a really good performance.
He could put that car scene on his reel, right?
Yeah.
So here's my question: is like how I'm saying the comments of people giving him not enough credit. Like I'm saying, I think we give Andrew as one of these competitors a little too much credit in how good that we think he would have done without that character.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, it's fair. That's fair.
Any more answers? I don't see Andrew as one of these people that he's got a couple lucky breaks. Anyone can be the Kingslayer like twice a day. Broken clocks, like right, mixing metaphors. But like, I'm not saying that Andrew's a bad trivia player, but Andrew's one of these people that, let's say, I would have really liked to go against this season as well. Because,
he definitely seems to be a vulnerable player.
He's a player that I think my levels of information that I have are comparable to his levels of information that he has. And you don't always get to showcase that.
I mean, I think that to me, the biggest issue is people often read into it like from you answer 3 questions in a row, I can draw an elaborate conclusion about, well, your character got in the way of your gameplay, or this was happening, or they're rusty or whatever. And I know that you guys make these shows and like that's the job, and I'm not that's what you got to do. That's how to that's analysis.
And that's what I said as well.
Go on, go.
Yeah, but like if I could just say that it's stupid for a moment, but like I don't know. I think sometimes it's like you can get like anybody or almost anybody, like Ethan Irwin. Who knows? That guy's mind's like a steel trap. But like almost anybody, I think you could get 3 or 4 questions in a row, no matter how good you are, smart you are. But it's like you just not know those, and it's tempting to be like, I'm going to read in. This was about gameplay because he was doing such a big character or whatever. Like, I think it's very possible, and I don't know, I haven't talked to Andrew, but I think it's very possible he just didn't know a lot of those answers. And like, that's happened to me. I'm sure will happen to me again. Like,
the thing too about Andrews is he was already losing and probably would have made a difference. But he didn't get that question. When he wanted to challenge on Big Eyes, like that was a correct challenge because that was not the correct question. Like that was not. Ruben is the name of the art gallery owner, played by Jason Schwartzman. He's not the art gallery critic, which is played by Terrence Stamp. Right. So that's like two different characters. And like he wanted to challenge. You could see him wanting to challenge. And like afterwards, he talked about how like that upset him because more than anyone in the Schmodown, he loves the movie Big Eyes. And like the moment you watch him do the multiple, and the moment he hears it, he's like, no, well, that's wrong. And so like. Maybe that's where the character stuff gets a little bit muddled because had he not been playing that kind of character, that's the kind of challenge that Sam would have like been jumped on in a heartbeat to challenge. So he would have missed 2 points.
And I guess one of the things with Guy for so long has been that him and Bateman were, Bateman and Guy, the Action Army together for so long that you just assume they know a lot of the same stuff. It's kind of one of those things where they podcast together. It's like the biggest fault in critically acclaimed was that they were too good at the same things. Their minds were too in sync at the same levels, and they just needed that lawn. And I think that's the way that you and Paul play beautifully off each other, is that there's a magicalness to like what you know as base knowledge, what you know growing up, and what Paul has growing up. It's just two different sets of, and it works perfectly together. And
like the kid and babes are like that too, like they're
exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, in years past, I had a lot of partners, like my brother, obviously, and JTE, who have very similar knowledge bases to mine. My brother, like, we grew up watching movies together. JTE and I are almost the same age. So that was always an issue, was like, yeah, we both are all over, like, 80s action movies and comedies, but none of us were paying attention to, like, YA movies in the aughts. Whereas Paul, he's 20 years younger than me. His frame of reference is totally different. I mean, obviously, we both know our stuff. We have some good foundations of knowledge, but he's bringing a lot of stuff to the table that I am not nearly as proficient in just because of his age. And, he was around for this whole new generation of movies.
And it was one of the best things, Boggs, I'll send this to you, dude. We've been able to see amazing players come from this millennial generation of players. I know Chance is a little younger than millennial, but I kind of throw him in just because of the dude.
The new thing? What do you happen? What happens? Sorry, not to interrupt. What happens when you're not a millennial? What do you?
I think I'm just going with Zoomer. I'm just calling them Zoomers.
Yeah, Gen Z or Zoomer is under millennial, and then I think we even have one below that, but I'm not sure what they're called.
No, I don't want to name them yet. That just makes me feel
too young. We don't care.
Yeah. But you just gotta feel that
something new, and I don't know. It's like whatever.
You don't have to worry about their technology because there won't be any movies for them to learn about.
Right there, they're just teen, the quarantine generation.
Exactly.
The teenies.
The best Schmodown generation is yet to come because now they just have a set of movies to learn. No more new movies. This is what you have. Learn what we have.
That's it. Mulan. Be happy with it.
Hey, thanks for showing me Mulan the other day. That was really cool.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Well, guys, we do have a guest, and Drew, I don't know how aware you are, but on this show, Lon has an estranged family member who has made their way onto this show. This might be my audition tape to host the Jerry Springer show, but I'd like to bring onto the show Mr. Don Harris.
Oh, okay. I thought it was my baby mama. I was like, Jesus
Christ.
Hey,
you are indeed not the father, but you are the brother.
Oh, wow, you got another brother, Lon.
I have not mentioned him because I don't like to talk about him.
Okay.
Because I'm just learning about him.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
That's what your brother sounds like.
That's right. We sound exactly the same.
He's nailing it.
He's killing it, man. He's doing you, but better.
Wait until you hear our twins speak later. It's absurd. Hello, everyone at home watching. I'm, of course, famous archaeologist Dr. Donovan Harris, and not John Barr, host of the Ultimate Schmodown Show, wearing Mark Ellis's hat and an ill-fitting blazer. That would be stupid. This is just a guy. I'm just a normal guy, and I'm here saying hello to VideoDrew and Lon Harris. Hello.
What do you think has to be wrong with our parents to produce 3, not just 1, not 2, 3 of these?
Well, can you imagine why yours sounds like this one sounds so much like Jewish Beetlejuice? I love it.
Jewish Beetlejuice.
This is just the way.
Jewish Beetlejuice.
This is how I talk after my journeys. I just pick up dialects from all over, and this is what everywhere in the world sounds like together as one.
Yeah,
I am the melting pot of the world.
If you complain about your bowels 3 times, he appears. Jewish Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Or no, you know what it is? This is sort of what happens when you put Harvey Fierstein in Mulan. You get this.
Why is Harvey Fierstein in Mulan? Can we? I know there's a lot of funny bits going on right now, but can we talk about this, please?
It is absolutely crucial that there is someone to say that the only person who loves one of the other characters is his mother. That is a crucial role that only Harvey Fierstein has the gravitas to pull off.
Donathan.
Fair.
I love Donathan. Is that the full name, Donathan? Love it. Gosh, I just can't wait.
Donathan and Jonathan, obviously. You got to have synergy, you know? It's got to work together.
Is that even what synergy is? I love it. Anyway.
I only came up with something like Donathan comes from I heard Post Malone called Jimmy Fallon Jimothy one time in a really endearing way. Donathan, Lonathan, and Jonathan. It's
I thought I told your producers not to bring up Post Malone in front of me. I thought I made that clear in my rider.
And only brown M&Ms and no Post Malone.
So that's another.
He's the only member of our whole family who knows Post Malone, who knows a Post Malone reference. So
nice.
Sets him apart.
It's a great family reunion and everything, but something's distracting me in the background. I mean, me and Colin are hardcore Star Wars fans. You got a Baby Yoda?
Well, this is the one thing I did get a token, much like in the Adam Sandler Pixels. Every time you play against Mark Yodi Reilly, you get a Baby Yoda. So I actually have a Baby Yoda now for mine forever. I didn't expect its head to be perfectly calibrated or its eyes to be so big, or for me to just be in love with it just immediately.
It's bringing out Drew's maternal side because it's
really horrifying.
It's really cradle heavy. Yeah,
I gotta say, it's doing this thing where it's it's Disney.
It's perfect cradling size.
It's exactly right.
So you want to have a baby, so that baby can then buy more Disney products. And I noticed they did that when I saw Monsters Inc. for the first time, and I was like, do I want to have a baby? Because the kids are really cute. And I was like, no, don't fall for it, Drew. They're just trying to get you to have more babies. So I've never really had another instance where that's been an issue, and I've desperately wanted a baby. But this Baby Yoda's got this head and his little arm is gonna use the Force, and but I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
All just live. We don't need to bring more people into this world right now. We can all just live vicariously through the Mandalorian and how he takes care of the child.
That's baby propaganda, man. Don't fall for it. That's just Disney baby propaganda. It's
the world with 3 Harris brothers is done. We don't need no. We're done.
Especially because I am exactly like the Mandalorian in that I always make sure I have children with me on all of my adventures, and I have shot Jason Sudeikis.
So also, you're just like Batman, then, is what it sounds like. You can't go anywhere dangerous without a small child at your side.
That's right.
This is a very good bit, Lonathan. What do you feel?
I'm just gonna let them go, man. I'm just gonna hang back. It's nice. It'll take a load off finally. For once, other people bring in that Harris heat, and I don't have to be all over.
Lon, I just want you to come home. You understand? I just want you to come home. I have so much wealth I've accumulated over the years. I just want you to come back to be your old self, the professor we can teach at university again. Remember how fun that was? Where you'd be teaching and I'd be in the front row writing, suggestive words on my eyelids.
Wait, you were writing suggestive words to me, even though we're siblings?
I did that to you. You did that to me. It was our whole little family.
This is why I had to take off. Now you've gotten right. I didn't know we were going to air this laundry in public, but yes, that was where I draw the line, sir.
Oh,
I saw that, Drew. I heard that.
Yeah,
laundry.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like you guys have a ton to work out. I've got a dip because I'm actually just came in for a brief cameo, and then
do your thing.
But I really want to keep watching this from the back end, and then just keep thinking about how wonderful it would be to run into both of you at Shul together. And what an amazing thing.
With Jewish Beetlejuice, he's always like, I've been to Shul 100,000 times, and it keeps getting funnier every time I pray about it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, Don is in LA, so watch out, Lon.
Oh, okay.
He's actually in LA, so you know.
Okay.
Better watch out. Drew, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate you popping in.
You played great, Drew, as well. You
like,
played great today.
Cannot wait to see. Hopefully see you in a teams match soon. I would love for that. I
love working with other Toms.
Yes, we need old Tom, new Tom, Tom, just a Tom, any
Or
Tom.
Lawn Tom. I would love a Lawn Tom. That'd be fun.
Lawn Tom. That sounds great.
Yeah, sounds delicious. Actually, now I'm hungry. Okay.
Can I get a Lawn Tom, please? Can I get 4 fried Lawn Tom?
Listen, if your stomach sounds like my voice, that's when you know you need to take a Lawn Tom.
Guys, this is so much fun. Oh my goodness,
that's funny.
Boggs, how you doing, bud? You broken yet?
I mean, it's a bit distracting. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, because we kind
it's
of
like
imagine
looking into a mirror.
happening.
I can't believe it. It's we haven't seen each other in many years, so
that's right.
Clearly.
Don, I will
look
ask,
in the mirror,
what have you excavated lately? I mean, what's the latest?
Oh, not too. I personally just discovered the pyramids, so I've been spending a lot of time with that, just figuring out what's going on with those, huh? Where did they come from? Are they aliens keeping grain in them? What's the deal?
So
That's been taking up a lot of my time because I just found out about them. So now I'm going down the rabbit hole of these other so-called archaeologists that found them before me. It's a whole shenanigan.
Now, my only archaeology knowledge, did you hear that? It goes back to Indiana Jones and even just History Channel Ancient Aliens. So if you were to host a Harris Brothers excavation type, journey into the unknowns of this world and others, where would you start? Either Harris brother, please take it away.
Well,
I don't care which one. I think I threw it to Don, but he wasn't quite aware.
He was suggesting that we used to teach together, and he's a professor of archaeology. I think pretty clearly the professor was a professor of film. Seems like kind of central to the bit. So I'm not really there's film references as opposed to Mesopotamia references I was throwing out there. So I did not realize that we were archaeological experts as well.
Oh, no. You're definitely the professor of film. I'm not here to tell you what your character is for sure. I'm a whole other guy.
And then we kind of came together for the archaeology of film, unearthing old films. I'm assuming maybe there was some collaborations there.
We were education majors who split in grad school.
Things and putting them at your doorstep and just being like, hey, Lon, what do you think of this?
Right, yes.
I found this in the dirt. How about that?
If I was going to host an archaeology show, I think it would just be a dissection of the Wolfgang Peterson film Troy. Like we would just go very deep week to week, like 1 minute at a time. What can we learn from Troy? Followed
by Alexander. And
yes, Oliver Stone, director. Cut these, please.
Don, I'll throw this to you. It's been a true honor and a pleasure watching you hunt across the great city of Los Angeles. Where is the strangest place you looked for your brother, and what did you find instead?
Oh my goodness, that's a heck of a question. Well, the most just horrifying place I could ever possibly imagine being in Los Angeles is deep inside the Regal Cinema. There's one that's it's like an hour walk away from Echo Park that I used to walk to all the time when I lived there. And I shouldn't have walked, should have taken an Uber. But I just had
downtown. Is that the Regal Cinema you're walking to?
That's right. Yep, I walked all the way from Echo Park to downtown. I just had to see Detective Pikachu, and I didn't have the money for anything besides a ticket to Detective Pikachu.
This is why I had to leave academia, because you find yourself like, I'm walking across Los Angeles now to see Detective Pikachu.
Listen, no one here is arguing that teachers don't get paid enough. That's been my main thing since being a real guy and not a character, is teachers don't get paid enough. But I went deep into that cinema, and all I found was just the original copy of some film called Tenet. Apparently, it was actually completed 300 years before AD
the audio
took effect,
file.
so it was made. And I guess what
I'm looking for the audio file.
BC?
Has anybody seen the audio file for Tenet? Anyone? Has anybody seen it?
I watched the film 30 years ago. Is what I.
Oh, okay. I assume the audio quality was better 30 years ago than whatever I had, unfortunately, at the drive.
Oh, I did have to set up a projector to watch it while I listened to the audio on my Zoom.
The whole soundtrack is backwards. Like
That's what I just should have done.
Like movie starts and you hear the end and then it meets in the middle. That's just Nolan being next level. I don't know. Not a lot of people are ready for that. That's why you got to see it in a theater.
A real craftsman.
It's like, what will he think of next?
I remember watching Inception and just being like, wow, all right, Mr. Nolan, you finally convinced me. Dreams are a little bit strange.
Yeah. Why would I want to just hear a good story with characters I like that has a beginning, middle, and end when I could solve a riddle?
I really don't understand why more movies aren't just about having a relatively normal day, right?
Yeah, just like you show up and they give you a pen and paper and there's some math questions and it's like, all right, that'll be $8.
That's all I really need from a film.
Here's some popcorn. You learned something, kid. Now get out of here.
Too many
Also, wear a
bells and
suit
whistles.
next time. It would kill you to wear a suit.
If the director of that first Train movie could see where we've gone today, he would be aghast.
That was the first thing they showed us at Film Bazaar last semester. One of my last semesters of film school was they were like, "Look at this," and then we're like, all but 2 people ran out of the theater screaming for their lives. We need that kind of fear in movies again. Like, scary movies are not scary. That was legitimate fear.
That's why they should have
like,
kept
train
Sonic
is gonna
looking
hit
like the
you.
way he did originally.
Train was coming head on 4D. We got that 4D for you right here.
This is why I've long said everybody should only go see one movie once. Otherwise, you lose the surprise. That first time you're like, ghosts. They're never going to top that anyway. Just don't go.
That was my reaction to watching the film Ghost.
You're like, Whoopi Goldberg.
Pottery! New pottery? I could never. I'm an archaeologist, obviously. I only care about old things.
Yeah,
I just assumed if you
Even I'm losing the thread now.
Yeah,
Jesus.
really. I know that's like archaeologists. They walk through like Pier 1, like, disgusting. Get it out of my face.
They walk past them like it's like the shop on the corner on the beach, and it's full of like totems in the yard, and they're like, fake.
Yeah, they hate
Fake.
Crate and Barrel. No, not
No
in.
way. It's an 1/8 of an inch too tall. That is false. Sorry.
That's
And-
right. My apartment is chock full of shark tooth necklaces that I collected myself.
It's like an ancient bullet bourbon bottle right behind you. I believe
That's right.
I believe that's 4th century Assyrian.
That is actually the 4th host of the Ultimate Show.
He's there every week.
It's here. It has made an appearance almost every week on the
Listen,
show, man.
You finish a bottle of bourbon, you want to let people know.
That's right. There's nothing I love more than drinking an entire bottle of bourbon and then
And then
seeing
be
if
like,
people
"Look
can
what I
remember
did."
things from movies.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly.
Now, actually, that brings me to a great question. Should
Wow,
we
it does.
have
All right.
drunk movie trivia schmodown?
No, we used to do movie fights on Screen Junkies drunk.
Okay, so yes, that so
And
that
that
essentially
was really
fills that void.
fun,
Okay.
but because that show is like make up some dumb bullshit with your friends. So drinking is great because it makes you make up even dumber bullshit than you would have already made up. But trivia, I think, would be a problem. And I say this because we also one time on Screen Junkies, and this was when we used to have a subscription. So you had to we could get away with stuff because you had to pay, and it was sort of more of a community. So we did stoned movie fights one time with Doug Benson hosting.
I watched every second of that. I was so I don't know why I was so hyped for that game.
It was like drunk movie fights was like legit hilarious. Like Ken Knapsack was on and was like amazing and hilarious on it and legitimately said a lot of like really funny stuff. Still movie fights is funny, but like train wreck funny because people are just like, it doesn't put you in the right headspace to
You
have
have
an
to be
argument.
as stoned as they are.
It's like when you're stoned, you don't want to have an argument. You just kind of want to goof around. And even Doug Benson, who was our judge, when you're stoned, you don't want to judge an argument. You just want to be like, everybody's great. Let's get nachos. So I think like that would be the same, like a drunk trivia challenge. It just doesn't feel like the right energy, you know? Like people are like a little more combative and it would be like more intense, but also you're forgetting stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that
We really need
I
is
guess that would
Adderall.
maybe
movie
that would
trivia
be
schmodown.
like an entire pot of coffee schmodown, I think would be amazing. I
Put
would do
Horatio Sands on that one.
that. Right? Yeah, like the Matt
Sponsored by
Foley-
Pete's Coffee.
like everybody has to sit in a basement for 5 hours drinking coffee like Matt Foley and then run up some stairs and just answer questions.
Is that not what that dungeon faction does? I thought that's what they do.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
I have to continue to imagine that every single time a player in the dungeon misses like one question, that Kaiser makes them watch the movie upside down in the dungeon. Just hangs them upside down and then makes them watch the movie and then sets a timer on his phone for the runtime, including credits, because that's very important for a growing Schmodown player, and then comes back and makes sure they're okay.
Yeah, I like that he was playing Evil Cooper from Twin Peaks in this past match, and like people didn't even notice. They were just like, "Well, that's Kaiser."
Right? No,
that's his usual vibe.
So I spent the first hour of the show fighting a mummy. Did we talk enough about the Schmodown? Like, did we ask Lon what his thoughts are on the upcoming match between Ben and Dan, or Father and Janine?
Or Paul next week?
Oh my goodness. We can get into that, man. Paul's got a big old match next week against. Yeah. I mean, Marisol, that's a player. You just kind of get that feeling sometimes when you watch someone for the first time and they look like a winner. You can just kind of the Regina King. I know white supremacy, and this guy smells like bleach. It's kind of like I see a winner, and I know what it smells like. And Marisol's kind of got that winning mentality, and to go up against Paul, it might be what the guy needs, in terms of where he's at right now. A win against a solid opponent. Whew, and
can he do it without you?
I think Paul carries me out of the two of us. I think we all know. Paul is like, because Paul doesn't just like he's a brilliant guy with like a memory that's like crazy. I mean, I think that's where like I grew up watching movies. I spent my whole life watching movies. Like I have that as my main advantage. It's just like lengthy experience. But Paul has this like crazy like academic memory where he can just recall stuff instantly, and he's extremely like well versed. Like he's diverse. Like he likes a lot of different stuff, and a lot of stuff you might not think he was into. Like he's into classics and older movies and musicals and that kind of stuff, but then he also knows like YA and Adam Sandler, and like he's such a threat that I always hesitate to like anybody else up against him. I feel like he's got a shot because he's just got the breadth. But yeah, like Marisol is one of this new class of people who are coming in from like the fan leagues or just like up and comers. And like that used to be, a new person. When I first joined the Schmodown, a new person was seen as like a bye week. Like, okay, I'll warm up against this person and then I'll go up against somebody who's like a real heavy hitter. And like, you're never safe today. Like you could get somebody from the fan leagues who is just like, unbelievable right out the gate, and they're just having these incredibly strong matches, and they're getting like literally everything right or almost everything right. And it's like, so who's to say? Like Marisol's a largely untested property, and she looks very strong from what we've seen so far. So it's hard to call. I mean, I never want to call anybody up against Mr. Oyama, but it's not going to be an easy challenge.
And I guess, Lon, you'd probably be the best person to ask, being his partner. Is Paul feel to you more comfortable in this digital space as opposed to, in the studio, just because it's what, it's where you start, coming up in the families to players like that? Do you feel, as a player who's competed more so in the studio matches, do you see a difference in the way he's kind of able to, be more comfortable at home as opposed to the studio?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think there's different kinds of players. I think some people, and I include myself in this, like really feed off of there being a crowd. Like I'm cracking jokes, which when you're doing it here, like I can watch your guys' faces and hope they do the thing that is the thing I'm looking for. That's like, you're on the right track. But like, it's not the same as being in front of a room full of people who are giving you that instant feedback of that's funny or that sucks. So, I mean, like, and that goes for the match as well. Like one of my very first matches was up against Cody Hall. And people were so into it. Like the whole room was going crazy. It's probably the most active crowd I've ever had. And
I remember that match. That was an unbelievable crowd that day. Like,
right. And they were all rooting against
Cody's
me.
Right, because it's Cody's home, right?
That's
kind of like that's Rudy
coming in, and
that's Rudy getting a shot,
right? And but it's still like you still feed off of that energy, and it's like, okay, we got to do this. You got something to prove. You're more motivated in the moment. And I will admit, it is harder when you're like sitting here in your house or Taco's house, as the case may be this week. it is harder to like, okay, like it's now the match. Cause I was, you're like hanging out in the same seat you were just doing your daily work on. And now it's like, okay, camera's on, we're doing it. And so like, I kind of struggle with that, but I feel like there are other players where the calm and serenity of being in a comfortable environment and it's all just in your computer and your surroundings are familiar. Like, I think other people really work well with that. And I think it's just like, I think Paul, I think when he's in the live circumstance, I think he's kind of blocking out a lot of the noise and focusing, and he doesn't have to do that now.
Right.
He can just be himself. So yeah, I think it has made a difference. And I also just think like he's just been doing it longer and a comfort level sets in. Like it like you do it the first time you're super nervous and it's like, oh God, what do I, like, and you're trying to play the rules and the trivia, but also be funny. And it's just like, your kind of brain's all over the place. By the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th match, you kind of figure out what it's all about. And it doesn't seem like, I'm always nervous the 3 minutes before a match starts, because it's just like, now I'm on. But other than that, I've kind of settled into a groove. And I think that's kind of happened with Paul as well.
Man, you can you can kind of feel it. Boggs, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, just on the kind of last faction section, obviously we're coming to the final kind of third of the season now. So, you guys, Corruption, Founding Fathers, is there a talk amongst the group, that a realistic talk that you guys can actually win this? Is that something that you guys are talking about, or is it kind of a match by match, see how it goes? Because you guys are right up there, the title's there for you.
I mean, they're for a little while. We're all, Swag is like on a group text together, and I think for a while, it's just members of Swag. For a while, it was like nobody. It was like talking to the pitcher during a no hitter. Like, you don't want to bring up championship, like don't jinx it, whatever. But now that we've got some people doing pretty well in these tournaments, and we're kind of like, we're in the end of the season kind of March right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's on people's minds. And I think, Winston goes out there and talks a lot of smack. So on some level, you just want to be behind that and back it up so that we don't become the faction that talked a lot of smack and then doesn't, pull it out at the end.
Because you got guaranteed title shots in Spectacular, right?
Yes, we have a few guaranteed spots at the Spectacular, which gives us a nice little advantage over. And, we still have multiple competitors in the singles tournament at this point, which not every faction has. So I think we're in a pretty good position right now. I mean, I think it's down to, there's like 3 or 4 factions that are seriously in contention, and some others that are like, they're going to have to really bring it over the next few weeks. So, I feel good about it. Obviously nothing is it's all going to come down to these tournaments and then the Spectacular, of course.
So I've kind of had this prevailing theory. It's not really a theory. It's a want, I guess. We need some stakes, Lon, in these factions.
No, not this again, Colin.
I'm bringing it back, Boggs. Boggs knows what it is. He smelled it from a mile away. We need some stakes with these factions. You guys got to be playing for something that's beyond a number 1 pick or beyond, something, right? Okay, there needs to be, if this, we're going to keep evolving this game, right? And this year has been a perfect evolution of what the last 2 seasons were, definitely added up into the factions becoming a thing, the managers becoming more of a dominant, presence in the league.
Right.
I kind of got this theory that what if, like, the last place faction has to just break up completely. You get relegated, British soccer, football, the bottom 2 teams, they're gone. Y'all are gone. You're going to some other league. You're going to go play some other teams, and you got to fight back to play in this league. I kind of feel, if there's no Super Bowl, we do have Spectacular, and that's kind of the thing that it's kind of unique with this. But does that kind of idea, does that kind of give you guys something a little, I know you guys lost, you lost your teams match. So you guys going into, if you guys going into the teams tournament kind of gives you a little more of a fighting, edge, where you're like, maybe we're in this, teams, whatever it is at the end, if it's like a Super Bowl or whatever, we can kind of put on top of it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I get it. I think that's mostly a thing from the fan perspective. Like, the season's got to lead into something. It sort of reminds me of like the bowl game debate from college football, like, well, is the Rose Bowl the bowl, or is it just one of like 20 bowls, and is that less exciting? And I guess with the belts and the Spectacular, it feels a little like that. Like, there isn't one team or one person who wins the season. There's like a bunch of things that you could get that are nice. I think for the players, we like that. Like if you don't get, if you don't end the season with a belt, well, maybe your faction wins, or maybe you get player of the year, you win something else at the awards, or like, it's a nice way to honor all of the people that are really bringing the effort to the league every week. So I feel like that's kind of how it is from the player's perspective. But from the viewer perspective, I completely get what you're saying, that like you want it to end in a big thing. You want to root for your person and against the other person, and you want it to have like, real emotional impact. So I get that. And I think your suggestion, like, I always love the idea of like, if you lose, like your whole faction had blown up and now you're a free agent and you go somewhere else.
I just think that gives Christian so much. He talks about how like the biggest crux of his whole storytelling career and all of this was Guy and Merle.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And Dan coming in and retiring and even all that kind of stuff. Like, that just opens up the whole thing.
And I think for me personally too, like, and this is the whole transition from professor to delinquent was really behind it, was like, these characters, after you do them for a season or two, not you, Donathan, nailing it. I could watch this for 10 years. But I mean, for me, like after a while, it's like, it's hard to do the same beat over and over again. And like, as the professor, it was like, I was literally running out of like Kieslowski references. I was looking on Wikipedia for like film movements I hadn't talked about yet. So like, it's just hard. That's a true story. So like, it's really hard to do. And I got to the end of 2 seasons. I was like, I have to do something else. So for me, any way to change things up, not that, I mean, I love swag. I love Winston's a great, like, comedic partner in crime. Like, he's really funny and like good.
He knows what each of you need. He knows exactly what each of you need to succeed. And I think that's so unique in this situation to be able to handle each player on a player by player basis. And
such a generous guy in terms of as a performer. Like, if he's like, this bit is going to work better if I'm the straight man, he doesn't try to show you up. And it's like, that's like, I really value that. So I love working with Winston. I don't want to leave that, but yeah, mixing up factions, mixing up teams, mixing up other players just gives me more ammo. So like in that way, it would be great for me, because then it's not me playing with the same people and trying to like, what can I say now to like keep this bit, kind of fresh.
Right. Well, guys, I think, this is we don't have anything coming up at 8:00. Obviously it's 8:30. There's no pay-per-view, but next week we have a huge throwdown and we got a huge undercard that got announced yesterday. So our friend Leo in the chat brought up, who do we have for Janine versus Warfather? Donathan, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yes, well, oh God, no, that's no good. That's no good. We don't like that one bit. I personally think that Janine has the record, that I think she might be able to get the win. She's also someone that we haven't gotten to see play a lot. She's kind of had to play outside of her wheelhouse in the Anna Geekdom tournament. But she's a mainstay in this league for a reason, not just because she's a great person, but because she does, in fact, know her stuff. Warfather is still someone that we saw just get a win recently. So I do think he has the capabilities to play a solid game, but I do kind of have to go based off experience and go Janine. That said, Warfather is, of course, a deep personal friend of both John Barr and myself. I, in fact, dug up his hammer as one of my expeditions earlier this year. You know that scene in Thor where Hawkeye has to try and protect the hammer? That's like what I did. I found Warfather's hammer, and I tried to stop him from taking it, and I got beaten to a pulp easily.
Please don't
Back to you, Colin.
Yeah,
those kind of stories. That's why
he's by the horns.
That's why he's the best Harris. It's like Thor in it's like the strongest Harris. It's like, well, there you go.
I know I'm the strongest.
That is the only reason, by the way, that I didn't get invited to join the Avengers. Someone put that video of the Warfather just absolutely going to town on my butt on America's Funniest Home Videos.
Was pretty funny.
I used to have Nick Fury's number. He ghosted me.
Oh,
he's the father of all war. You don't want to challenge that guy to a fight.
Goodness no.
Well, Boggs,
Yes.
I know you're probably leaning one way, but you got a whole week to think about it. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Where are you leaning right now?
I'm no doubt, Janine. Absolutely no doubt. This is what I mean, and I actually referred to this when we were talking about VideoDrew, is that these players going in, like when Janine has a tougher match later on, you need these kind of matches where you're playing against someone with a kind of similar record, same position, you're coming off a loss, that kind of thing, a newer player, and then you come out on top, then you have the momentum, the confidence going forward, because you've got that win. So yeah, I'm definitely going Janine. She's in my eyes, better caliber player, been through more experiences. So yeah, obviously Warfather's a newer player. His time will come maybe a bit later. But yeah, it's like Janine's time now. She's kind of playing in 3 divisions and all that. So I just kind of believe she's got more under her belt, and definitely going for Janine.
Yeah, Lon, I'll be honest, man. I made the mistake a lot of the times. I made a point that the player with the most experience going into the match in terms of this digital age is going to be more successful. It's kind of been my ride. And I, for some reason, stupidly pick against my own thoughts all the time. I go against it. And I really, and going against, Shazam coming up against you guys just kind of out of nowhere, kind of Shazam, and then kind of shocking you guys kind of threw my whole theory out the window.
Yeah.
Do you think that Janine playing in the IG and all that kind of stuff? You've played with the guys in your ears. I kind of think that's a whole different world now with everybody in the ears.
I definitely think that makes a difference, especially your first time. It's a very different game. It's just a very different game. Your discussion with your partner, your manager, all of that is very different. The format feels a little different, and it's just a very different ball game to be answering questions like in your jammy bottoms in your bedroom with nobody around, just listening to headphones, as opposed to like you've spent an hour driving to Burbank, you're in a studio, you're in a costume. Like it's totally different. So I do think that gives you an advantage somewhat. But again, I think with people like Warfather and Janine, these are both, and I know both of them reasonably well, and like they're both they have it. They know movies like very few people that in your life. And on any given day, I feel like you do this matchup and like it's a different result. Like I think it's going to come down to who gets the better night of sleep, who gets questions in the areas that they know, what they spin on the wheel. I think that we try to we want to look at the details and try to make these kind of prognostications based on past performance or whatever. But it's really going to come down to, I think, the little ticky-tack things on the day, because their knowledge bases are very similar. Having said that, I think just in terms of who's really hungry, I think Janine is a player who has never gotten her due in this league. To me, that's just my opinion. But I feel like she's somebody who's always kind of seen as not as much of a threat despite a huge knowledge base. And I think that, she wants to show, just like Drew was saying earlier, I think she comes in kind of wanting to show everybody, I belong here, I deserve this spot. And I think that more than maybe anything else is going to give her an advantage. Whereas Warfather, it's like, he's great. I think everybody knows that Warfather's great and knowledgeable, and he's had some solid successes. I don't know if he has that same drive to I got to show the world what I can do.
Yeah, there's definitely, he's not getting gassed up on Twitter right now. Exactly. I know that for sure.
And it's like that. There's definitely gender politics and stuff that goes into that, and we don't have to get into all that or whatever. But yeah, I think that sometimes having that fire and having something to prove is what matters. And I think, also when we see these newer players come out and take down, these giants or whatever, I think you see some of that too, that it's they're hungry, they want to show everybody that they belong in the Schmoedown, and they want to earn those fans and get people excited about them. And I think that, can make a big difference.
And like you said, Lon, and we'll close on this. You mentioned it. Sometimes these new competitors can give returning players that bye-week mentality, and that's got to be a moment that some players want to capture. And there's been plenty of moments so far in this tournament. Perry Nemiroff taking that win from Mike Kalinowski. That's absolutely huge. And I think we are ripe for moments like that coming up.
Right. And I think that is definitely one of those moments that Perry, knowing, she hasn't played that much. She's coming in as kind of an untested property. Obviously somebody people know and has the movie knowledge and has been a presence on Collider and elsewhere. But yeah, I think coming in and having that attitude of I'm going to really show people what I can do, that sometimes I think it's at the bounce just in terms of prep and focus. Whereas a dude like me who's been doing it for a while and everybody always thinks, it's pretty funny. There's not a lot of pressure on me episode to episode. I can just kind of be make a joke, get a Tom Hanks question. All right, see you later. And so I think that, that may be the thing that tips the scales in Janine's favor.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap this fantastic conversation up. First, I'll start and I'll throw it over to Boggs. Lon, you have been just a treat this season in whatever, whatever negativity we all got when we step out of the home. When you've come onto the Schmodown screen, it has truly just been just a bright spot because, like you said, it was a change for you from the professor to the delinquent, but you've pulled it off with style, class, and grace, and you've done it so well that it's just honest. I mean, if there's character of the year, I mean, it's you in terms of, just keeping it. Yeah. Take it off because it's been absolutely fantastic to watch you. Boggs and I absolutely, we can't get enough of you, man. Like we just think you're the bee's knees, man.
Well, thanks, guys. That's very nice. And I mean, I got lucky. Like I came up with this like in an afternoon and just threw it together. And I didn't know that we were going to be doing this digital season. I thought I was going to be messing with people in reality, and it turned out to be like it just worked. It just clicked because it was like, well, now I could be in different places, and it's always like I'm always on the road, and it just really fed into a lot of what we were doing. So thank you. That's a long way of saying I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say.
Problem. Boggs, final words.
Yeah, just want to confirm what Colin's saying. That I mean, you've been brilliant. You don't need us to tell you that. I mean, you already know that you're killing it this season. So, in fact, I've got one last question. Who have you got for Bateman Morrill?
Wow. I mean, those guys are fantastic. Both great. Both have. I've never been up against Dan. Ben Bateman has beaten me handily, so I would never count him out. I will say Dan is not only one of the most movie knowledgeable people I've ever gotten to know, and I've known some movie knowledgeable people, but he does not he can get rattled in his personal life or whatever, but he does not. Like, you can't rattle him during a Schmodown match. You can't get in his head. You can't unsettle him. He's just all focus. He's there to win. And so, I would never bet against Dan Murrell in this game, to be honest. I also think we've seen Ben struggle a little bit with the online. Like, he obviously is not totally comfortable during, the sidebar moments. I feel like he
feeds. He's a crowd player. He's a studio player. There's something about his play style.
And I also feel like, and I don't know this for sure, this is just like my theory, but he seems to be hesitant to fully speak his mind during he doesn't want to give away anything. He doesn't want us to learn his strategy or how he's memorizing things or how he's organizing his thoughts. So I think that's been a little struggle, especially for him in teams, which this won't matter as much. But I do think he seems to me to be a little thrown by the digital format. And so that when it's otherwise such a close match, I think little things like that can come into play. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna back my buddy Dan on that one. I think Murrell's gonna pull that out once again, being the GOAT as he is.
John, whoever's over there in the corner.
Don't break the fourth wall. Not when I'm doing such great character work, Colin.
It's been real.
Jonathan, excuse me, sir. Please give me your final
I'm going to need
thought.
a lot of therapy after this to deal with all the emotions that have come up. I'm just saying.
That's right, Liz. I have so much gold for you. Do you understand? I've been to Mesopotamia twice, and I've just gotten so much gold from going there. As far as my thoughts, I can't disagree with my brother. I do think that Dan has just proven time and time again. There's a reason he's consistently going up for the belts throughout his basically entire career. It's because he's always been on that level. You cannot rattle the man, and I should know. I've been hiding in the Collider desk just trying to shake it, see what happens, comes loose, and it doesn't work. He's always able to come with it. I have to go with Dan Murrell, and I definitely agree that Ben Bateman is, he feeds so much off of the mystery. His whole thing when he first came in was like, oh, does he actually know the question? We don't know for sure. And it's not a character trait that has translated as well over digital, where the curtain is pulled back a little bit. And I do think he is still trying to navigate that, having only played 2 matches. I think it's fair that he hasn't figured it out yet. He's still learning a bit, so he's still on the curve. So I just think Dan has the advantage of being that all-time great. Having played a few more matches of this caliber, I'm going Dan.
Any last words for your brother before you two don't speak again for another 20 years?
Yeah, we're going right back to Estranged after this.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm immediately going back to my home in the La Brea Tar Pits after this.
Wait, I did have a question for both of you, and it's the final question. What was the first movie your parents took you both to? And I assume I'm going to get different answers, but Don, do you remember what you think the first movie was?
I have absolutely no problem. The first movie my parents took me to see was Elmo and Grouchland. I was 35 when that movie came out, and I just wanted to see it so bad with them.
Lon, I don't think that quite checks out
The
date-wise.
timing on that is extraordinarily confusing.
Yeah, very.
So I'm going to give my own original answer, and this is the truth. It was a re-release of Walt Disney's Robin Hood, the one with like the sexy Robin Hood fox everybody likes.
Yeah,
Sexy.
Yeah.
Fox.
The kids love the Robin Hood
It's
fox.
the
I didn't make
Nightwing
it
of
up.
Disney movie characters. It's
Very
fine.
good-looking fox. So yes, it was that one, and apparently I like stood up on the chair and was like, I discovered something that I would love for my whole life until
Foxes.
today.
Well, that's fantastic, folks. This has been an absolute pleasure. We've had an unbelievable time talking movies, talking Schmodown, talking everything. We hope you enjoyed this. We hope that we could fill a little void in your Friday night. And we, guys, we're here 3 times a week. If you don't know, we're here on Thursdays breaking down the first. Maybe you're going to take my job. You offered to take my job.
Right.
You're welcome to take my
pretty
job.
good.
You were doing
like
a fantastic job.
Pretty confident. Yeah.
So, I mean, like you guys know, we're here Thursdays breaking down the Monday through Wednesday matches. Fridays, like we are right now, we're here breaking down that Thursday match plus a pay-per-view if it's there. And then Saturdays, we're here to break down the entire pay-per-view top to bottom. And, I mean, we are here for you. If you need anything, follow us at John. It's your job today. Let me see it. At TUSS
Oh, yes,
Pod.
it's right underneath my chin. It says
Yes.
at TUSS Pod.
Yes.
That means podcast.
Yes, it does. And can you, man, you've been doing so
You're
well, guys.
killing it today.
We are on.
Oh, I'm doing so good. Yeah,
God.
I'm really doing I feel really good about what I've been doing.
Well, I've been feeling great about what we've been doing. So for Lon, Don, Boggs, Drew, everybody here at the Ultimate Showdown Show, this has been a presentation of the Ultimate Showdown Show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back next Thursday. We'll see you next time, folks.